Well, good morning, everybody. Just taking a lovely walk through the neighborhood. Hope everyone's morning is going as well as mine is. So, episode 1 of Fantasy Walks, or whatever we're going to call this series, in which I review fantasy books chapter by chapter as I read it. Now, granted, there may be days where I upload multiple episodes if I'm blasting through a book, but here we are. So, day 1 is going to be Robert Jordan's New Spring, book 0 of The Wheel of Time. So, Robert Jordan, a pretty famous fantasy author, described sometimes as like the next generation after Tolkien. Generally put in that same category at least. He wrote a book series called The Wheel of Time. I think 14 books in total or so. The last 3, he died before he finished the series, but he left his notes. And so he had another famous fantasy author named Brandon Sanderson finish up his series for him through his estate. And so Brandon Sanderson in his own right is a very prolific fantasy author. Very detailed world building, that kind of thing. Again, same genre and such as Tolkien. But anyway, New Spring, Wheel of Time, book 0, chapter 1. So, one thing, if you listen to audiobooks, and if you read the book, you'll know that the prologues for the Wheel of Time books are sometimes excruciatingly long. And so, sometimes if you're like me, you're dreading the prologue of a new book because you know that it's going to be another couple hours until the actual thing starts. The New Spring doesn't have a prologue. It just starts with chapter 1. I'm going to have to go back and look at sort of the history of New Spring to see, why no prologue. Was it just... I don't think he wrote it first, obviously. But I guess it was just his artistic decision to not have a prologue in this one. Anyway, starts out, chapter 1. We are fighting the Aiel in the Aiel War. The Aiel War is sort of post-Aiel War is where the actual Wheel of Time starts. Fittingly enough, book 0 is during the middle of the Aiel War, and we see from the viewpoint of Lan Mandragoran, who's a Malkiri leader. That's his people, the Malkiri people. And as part of Malkiri, he's working with sort of everyone in the world to fight against these people known as the Aiel, who come from an area known as the Waste, which is a big desert people. So they've come out of the Waste. Normally they haven't, sort of historically, they haven't bothered anybody. And they've begun to come out of the Waste and fight and capture and so on and so forth. And I need to read more about the lore of like why the Aiel War started, who triggered it, why are they coming down the ways. I think part of what I remember from the lore, keep in mind I'm on like book 10 of the Wheel of Time, is just sort of they came out and then everyone was like, oh no, we have to fight, we have to protect. And there wasn't really any particular, I would say, trigger of like why suddenly the Aiel started coming out of the waste. So anyway, they come out of the waste and start fighting, and there's a coalition that forms to combat the Aiel. So Lan and the Malkiri people are part of this coalition, but Lan is sort of in charge of his group of people. They've been fighting for several years at this point, so for better or worse, you know, the people he's been fighting with have been whittled down to the best of warriors, right? If you're not a good warrior, you're killed in like, you know, first month or two of fighting. So anyway, he's got this sort of elite group of soldiers, and part of chapter 1 is they've been camping, sort of preparing for their next battle. This rather rude, low-ranking officer, Lan, mentions that, you know, hey, I wasn't expecting, or at least he thinks in his mind, you know, why is an officer coming to send messages, versus say a what do you call it, like a messenger. So anyway, he's commenting on that. He says, you know, hey, the messenger officer says, hey, my boss, I forget his name, anyway, his leaders wants Lan to sort of strike as part of this hammer anvil concept, right? To strike, sort of squish the Aiel, you know, and sort of take this party of Aiel that they found and attack them, you know, as sort of a hammer and anvil and sort of squish them in between. And so Lan is like, okay, we'll do that. Again, he's still pretty annoyed that this guy's rude and not particularly the most pleasant one to take orders from. And so anyway, they show up, get ready, get there. They worked hard because they gotta like trudge through the snow, so on and so forth. And they get there, and then the Aiel show up. It's like 10,000 of them, and he has, you know, a couple hundred. And so it's like a couple hundred versus like thousands of them, and he's like, crap. But then nothing happens. They sort of do these weird, you know, trumpets and their weird, you know, signs that they do, you know, with their spears and stuff, but they don't attack. They just sort of go off to the side and just keep walking past them like they're not really there, and everyone's just sort of standing there like, what the heck? And anyway, everyone's like, do we follow him? What do we do, boss? And it's like, well, we're gonna go talk to this leader and give him a quick discussion, review on what a hammer and anvil is, because that was pretty much not what we were expecting. We were not expecting a couple hundred of us to pull up on 1,000 plus Aiel, and you know, they were all pretty much expecting to die, and before they like took a hard right and, you know, kept on walking. So anyway, that is chapter 1. Everyone's kind of confused at what exactly is going on. Some other little tidbits to fill in. This is all happening near-ish the White Tower, which is the tower where the sort of what you might call the wizards of the land are all female. They're called Aes Sedai, or the Aes Sedai live. There's also a few, it mentions there's also a few White Cloaks, which are the sort of sworn enemies of the Aes Sedai. They think the Aes Sedai are, they call them witches. They think they're evil, that, everything they're doing is black magic and that kind of thing. And so, but the weird part is they're fighting with with the Aes Sedai to try and get rid of the Aiel. So there's that. But anyway, that's basically chapter 1, book 0 of New Spring. Hope to keep posting this as I have time and as I finish chapters. Look forward to seeing y'all's responses in the comments if you like this, if you hate it. Honestly, I should take better notes, but honestly, the whole point of this is to just walk and talk. I think rather than having a freshly prepared script. Honestly, it helps me review in my brain better, I would say. Anyway, hope you all have a fantastic day, and see y'all soon. Bye.